Hi guys, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be showing you the long-awaited How to Make Neurofunk. We're going to be using only Ableton effects and instruments and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, as usual, you can get the full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, everything from this video is available right at the top of the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, here we go. So this is the loop from the intro. You can see the way this is set up is we have all these basses up here, and then I have the drums at the bottom. So I'm going to just start with the basses, and then along the way I'll talk about the arrangement and kind of how everything's laid out, as well as the sound design. So the first sound we have here is this main bass 1, which sounds like this. So you can hear, this is just that bass that hits like right on the 1. So this is right away some of the stuff you want to think about with this style of track. You know, it's not just making cool bass sounds, but it's the dynamic of the basses, like how this one hits like that, and then it stops. You know, just kind of having stuff like that. And like, again, it's not just about the sound design, but also how it's actually like laid out in the track. So with this one, what's happening is we have this sub layer, and then we have sort of like the mid-range bass. So this is how you typically want to make these. You want to think of these as two separate things. There's always going to be like that fat sub bass, you know, holding down the low end, but then there's also these mid-range basses on top, and by separating them, you're able to make each one kind of a lot more powerful. Like, if you were trying to get the sub and the mid-range out of one sound, you'd have a hard time, but by splitting it into two different sounds here, you know, you can specialize each one and get a better sub and a better mid-bass. So the mid-bass itself is actually two layers. It's this patch, and then this patch. So you can hear, like, this one gives you that sort of, like, whooshing effect. And then this one is more of, like, the meat of the bass. So for the first one, it's made with Operator. Both of these are made with Operator. FM Synthesis is actually really good for making these style of basses because you can create really interesting textures. Like, a big thing about making neuro sounds is it doesn't really matter necessarily what you're working with. It's just about like how creative you get with the textures and how you're actually like, you know, making it sound sonically. And FM Synthesis is perfect for this because, like I said, you know, you're creating textures not just with like a saw wave or a square wave, but these complex waveforms that you can create using different combinations of waveforms. So you can see here, I've got just two sine waves and then a bit of white noise. You can see the level on this is being automated, so that's doing that like vroom. And then those are just going into a bandpass filter, which is also being automated in a really similar way. So this is also another thing, is the automation with these basses is really going to make or break it, and you'll see that as we go through. It's like you're automating multiple things at once, and it creates a lot of complexity and interesting sounds. I've also got the shaper here on this filter, and then we just have some chorus, a bit of amp, which is a really good distortion for making these really blown out, hard-hitting basses. Here's without this. And with it, so you can hear what that does, and then we just have a high pass, and then on the second layer, so this is also Operator. This one is made using a sine wave, and then we have this saw 3 wave. You can see that's an octave up, and then we have a bit of white noise, and then I'm automating that volume of the saw 3 wave, just like we did on that first bass, and then I have that going through an amp, and then on the group of those inside of this group, so we have a bit of really short reverb. So this reverb is really an important thing. You'll see I've done it throughout this project file. But yeah, these sounds need to have a certain level of life to them. And if you just keep them completely dry, it feels a bit flat, you know? So what you do is you just add this really short reverb to everything. And you can create, you know, some really big, kind of lively sounds this way. And then these are both going through this bass amp here, a bit of drum bus, and then a high pass filter. And then for the sub, it's really simple. It's just this Operator patch. It's literally just two sine waves, a little bit of FM. Like, it's mostly just the first one, but then the second one just adds a bit more fullness to the sound, and then we just have some drum bus and an EQ. And then on the group of all these basses, you can see I just have some saturation and a bit of sidechain. So here's without this. And then with it, you can hear, you know, it just kind of glues the whole bass together. Turning up that bass frequency can really help give you that, like, crunchy texture, especially when you're saturating your sub bass and your mid-range bass at the same time. And then, yeah, the side chain here is the side chaining it a little bit to the kick. And then we have this little reverse down here as well. So that just goes into the bass. The way you make this is you just take a little bit of, like you record a little piece of your sound, like I did it here. So I took that, and what you do is you take like literally just the start of it. Like that, and then what you do is you put on a bunch of reverb. I'll show you. Like if we do that, it's gonna sound like this. And then you get that tail. And then what you do is you just freeze it down and flatten it, and then you get just that tail as audio, and then all you're doing is just reversing that, and then what happens then is you get like, it perfectly slides into the sound. And yeah, that's just like a nice way to really add a lot of life to the sound, because instead of just going wow every time, you get wow. Like it's a little bit more, you know, it makes it hit a little bit more. Then we have the second main bass. So this one is the sort of like main one that you hear in between. Boom, boom, boom. The way this one is made is, so we have 2 layers with this one. We have 3 layers. Okay, so we have this main mid-range bass, and then we have a sub. And then we also have this little bass, which just hits in the middle. So for the first one, like I said, it's 2 layers. So we have this operator, and then this one. So you can hear like sort of a more growly sound, which is just FM, saw wave, and then 3 sine waves, and then just a bunch of automation with the filter and that kind of stuff. You can see the filter's on low pass, and I have this hard shaper on. I've also automated the volume to make it a little bit sharper and make it so you can really hear those modulations. And then we have on the second layer, so this is also very similar patch, but this is just 2 sine waves, or excuse me, a square wave and a triangle wave, but then we're automating the level on that, as well as the bandpass and the volume. So same thing as the first one. Again, just sort of like adding on to that sound. And then we have those going through a bit of that short reverb like I was talking about. I have this amp here as well, which is distorting them. Here's without that. And with it. So you can hear what that's doing and how that's like really crunching it. And then we have the saturator. I've got the bass frequency just automating over here actually. You know, just kind of a nice way to switch it up at that one part. Then we have this reverb automation. This is a cool way to like add some life to your basses. Like just having it like that kind of open up. Can sound really cool. Then we just have this OTT. This is, as you guys probably know, a famous preset for Ableton's multiband compressor. It makes things sound like just really, OTT stands for over the top essentially, so it makes things sound, you know, really crunchy and nice and sort of textured. Then we just have some drum bus and then this EQ cutting out the lows. And then, so yeah, and then on this one that kind of glides down here. So this is actually a really similar patch to one of the layers from that last one. You can see, yeah, it's a square wave, and then we have another square wave, and then some sine waves, and they're all at different octaves. I'm automating that level, as well as the filter, which has the shaper on it, and the volume. And then with this one, what we did is, you can see I had the voices on 1, so it can only play 1 note at a time, and then I turn on this glide here, and then we just have this note sliding down. So that's how you do the glide. And that's going through a bit of chorus. I have this erosion here. Here's without that. And with it, you can hear that's a really nice way to add some crunch. We got that same short reverb, amp distorting it. I have the same reverb automation like on that last bass I showed you, but just kind of in a little bit of a different place. Then we have the same OTT and a bit of drum bus. And yeah, and then the last layer inside of here is the sub bass, which sounds like this. And this one's really simple. All it is it's just a sine wave, and then I'm automating the volume on there. This also does that glide down, like the second bass. And then it's just going through a bit of drum bus. And then on the group of these, I just have a bit of drum bus, a bit of EQ, and a sidechain. So here's without any of this stuff. and then with it. So you can hear what this does. You know, drum bus is fattening everything up and really gluing these together. The EQ is just kind of boosting the mid-range a little bit, you know, making it a bit sharper, as well as cleaning out a bit of room for the kick. And then this compressor is just a side chain into the kick. And yeah, that's it for the second main bass. Then we have sort of like these background bass sounds, which sound like this. So you can hear these are all kind of similar basses to those last ones I was showing you, but these are just kind of hitting every here and there and not like necessarily sort of right in your face the whole time, but these are the extra little layers that are really going to tie it together. You know, having that like boom right there, or like, or even just having like this growl, like the first time we have just a boom, and then the second time you get that nice kind of like nasty sort of thing happening there. So yeah, so with this bass pluck, it's pretty simple. It's these two analog patches. So it's this one and then this one, which is sort of like the attack. So the first one you can see is just two saw waves detuned a bit. You got a bandpass filter, which has a little bit of automation there and an envelope on it. And then we just have some unison, and then the second patch is just a square wave, short low pass filter with a bit of automation and an envelope on that. Super short amp envelope again, because this is really just making that like burn in the sound. We got a bit of erosion, a bit of short reverb and amp, and a bit of OTT. So you can see, you know, these three things are pretty much the same throughout. Like, these are the things that you're going to use on a lot of your different sounds to really give them that kind of cohesive texture. And then we just have some drum bus and a bit of a notch filter. Notch filtering is really good with this style. It gives you that kind of like more like crispy sound where it's more focused on the highs and lows, like without this. And then with it, you can hear it really gives it the sort of like neuro quality. Then we have the second bass pluck. So this is this patch layered with this patch. So what's happening here is, yeah, we have this analog. It's just a saw wave and a square wave detuned a bunch, going into a bandpass filter, which is being automated like that. The amp envelope set like that, and then we have some unison. I have this vocoder, which you can see I'm automating the formants on that. So this is a really great way to add like a cool texture to your neuro basses. Here's without the vocoder, and then with it, you can hear it gives it that like kind of just very neuro sort of quality. So the key to this is putting it on this modular setting, or modulator setting. And yeah, then that's just going through short reverb, a bit of amp, a bit of saturation and OTT and drum bus, which are all just kind of giving it that extra push at the end. And then for the second layer, so this is just like this sort of FM pluck with operator. You know, it's meant to add a bit more sort of punch to the sound. So this, you can see, is just, yeah, sine wave, another sine wave, and then a bit of white noise. The second one is an octave down from the first one, or actually 2 octaves down from the first one. So you get kind of a cool thing happening with the FM there, and then we have a bandpass filter with an envelope as well as a shaper, and then that's being automated to just go up. We have this vocoder, which is set in a very similar way to how I had the one on that last patch, and then we have this amp and OTT and drum bus to give it some crunch and some distortion and texture. And yeah, and then on the group of these, it's just a bit of short reverb, which is being automated right there. You hear that like kind of washing out. And then I just have this drum bus. And then we have this little growl, which is basically just made with these two patches. It is that one. So just this like super detuned sine wave thing, which is going through some erosion and overdrive, and a bit of a bandpass filter, which is being automated in this place. And then this patch, which you can hear is more like the low end, which is just actually a very similar patch, but it's just kind of being dialed in a little bit of a different way. And then those are just going through a bit of reverb, a bit of erosion. So this erosion on the noise setting is really good for these basses because you can kind of add that crunch Like here's without it. It gives you that like crunchy, sort of crispy neuro texture. And then we just have a bit of drum bus and a compressor side chaining into the kick. And then the last bass here is the second growl. So this one does a bit of gliding down, just like that first bass I showed you that was doing that. It's just, you set the voices to 1, glide, and there you go. So the way that this bass is being made is using this waveform. So I actually drew this in. You can see, you can draw in waveforms using operator. You just do it by, drawing in some points like that. And it can be a nice way to use like some sine waves and do some cool sine wave FM stuff, but just a little bit more harmonic content to make it a bit more interesting. And then we just have a sine wave and a bit of white noise. And the second one is detuned and an octave up. And then those are going into a bandpass. You can see I've got the shaper on there. That's being automated. And then we also have this LFO here on the volume as well as the filter frequency. And so that's that like kind of slowing down thing you hear there. I'm just automating the rate to go down. Then we have this notch filter. We have this phaser, which is a really great way to kind of add some texture. Here's without it. And with it, you can hear it adds like some cool filtering to the sound, and I'm automating that frequency. Then we just have short reverb, as well as a bit of saturation and amp, and then finally some OTT to give it that extra bit of crunch. And then I just have this one being sidechained to the kick. And yeah, that's it for the basses. So as you can see, like, it's not actually that hard. It's really just about getting in there and kind of playing around with these different techniques of distortion and FM synthesis and detuning oscillators and that kind of stuff, and sort of seeing what comes out and then just trying to make it as fat and as big as possible, and also make it have like an interesting arrangement in the track. So then we have this kick and snare bus, which sounds like this. So yeah, you can hear we have the kick and the snare in a group together. I'll show you these individually. We just have like this nice, punchy kick that I made. And then the super punchy snare. The snare is actually clipping a little bit coming out of here. But these are being grouped together and saturated, so that actually just kind of helps it hit more. But you can see I have drum bus and then some EQ on this one. And then we just have those going through a bit of saturation together. So the reason why we're grouping the kick and snare together is because these are kind of like the hardest hitting things in the mix. Like if you listen, like just constantly going like that, those are sort of like the main things anchoring the beat. And so this is why we group these together. The basses in this style, like if you were mixing like a house track or techno or something like that, you are going to put the kick and bass in a group together, but because the basses are really kind of like the lead here, they're kind of like their own whole separate thing, you don't really want to group them with the kick. They're not really working in the same frequency range, but the kick and snare are really similar sounds too. Like if you listen, they're both like these short, hard-hitting percussion hits, so that's why we have those in a group together. And then after that, we just have these hi-hats. So what we've got here are we have like sort of these 3 layers on top and then the 3 layers on bottom. So we've got these going on. So you can hear these are sort of like the action layers. It's these 2 hi-hats, which you can see I've got these sidechain, or this first one sidechained to the kick and snare, and then the second one which is just kind of hitting at the end of every 2 bars. And then this little noise stab, which is just white noise. You can see it's got that attack, so it goes like that. A bit of a high pass, and then some erosion to make it crunchy. And yeah, these, like I said, are sort of like the action layers. These are what are going to give you like a lot of movement and action in the beat, because it's just like these quick little sort of like things happening. And these are important not to overlook. These are the things that are really creating the intensity, and they're kind of playing off of the basses too, because you can hear like we get that right at the same time as that first bass hitting. So like these are the things that can be easy to overlook, but they're gonna add a lot of energy to your track. And then we have the Tambourine and Shakers. So yeah, just your standard sort of tambourine and shaker stuff, just doing that steady. We've got the tambourine for the high end, and the shaker for the mid-range, and then we just have this roll. So this is your standard sort of like roll from a breakbeat like you would have in drum and bass. And yeah, and then on the group of these, we just have a bit of saturation and some EQs. So without that, and with it, you can hear it's just tying it all together. And yeah, so that is going to be it for the hi-hats, and that's also going to be it for this video, guys. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Make sure to let me know if you want me to do more of these neuro videos or more drum and bass. I totally will. This is the first time of me making this kind of stuff on this channel, and I think it turned out pretty nice. I'm really proud of this video. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything of that shape from this video is available right at the top of the description on my Bandcamp for just $5. If you guys are really enjoying these videos, make sure to go pick that up. It really supports me, and you get all these great sounds and samples to work with on your own. And yeah, so that's me for this one, guys. Thank you very much, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.